See one coming. If you're a beginner hunter or you want to learn how to hunt to be able to sustainably feed your family from the land, one thing that can be really intimidating getting starting is just all of the slang, the lingo, the terminology that hunters use. Whether you're talking with another hunter and you want to understand them or not just kind of feel awkward and out of place, or you go into a gear store and you want to, again, not feel out of place or be able to understand what people are saying to each other. So in today's video, I'm going to cover some common terms that are used in hunting and what the meaning of those words are. And we also have a full dictionary PDF that you can download with a whole bunch of different terminology. And you can download that for free through the link that's in the comments below. By the way, my name's Chris Gilmore, and this is the Chris Outdoors channel. We're all about helping people deepen their connection with the land, learn about ecology, as well as develop their self-reliance skill, whether it's learning how to grow food or learning how to do things like hunt. You can check us out at chrisoutdoors.ca and thehuntersjourney.com. Don't forget to get the free PDF in the link in the comment and subscribe to this channel if you want more content like this.
Hey Chris, what are you doing?
I'm field dressing. So contrary to what the name sounds like, field dressing actually has nothing to do with where you choose to put on your hunting clothes when you're going out to hunt. Now, I do often put on my hunting clothes out in the field, but that's not what it means. Field dressing is often when you harvest a large game, like something like a deer, and before we pull it out of the woods, what we'll do is we'll actually slit open the belly and we'll take all of the insides out. We'll pull out the stomach, the throat, things of that nature. It makes the deer lighter to pull out, but it also slows down and reduces the possibility of meat starting to rot or getting infected by having all of that inner digestive cavity inside of the animal. So field dressing is when we basically gut the animal out in the field before bringing it back in. Got to shoot them in the boiler room. So this one might disappoint you a little bit, but go shoot them in the boiler room actually has nothing to do with taking shots at the local pub, although that's also sometimes part of the hunting experience. So this is a term I'm stealing from my good friend Caleb Musgrave. Caleb runs Canadian Bushcraft podcast as well as the Canadian Bushcraft website. So if you haven't checked that out, you got to do it. I'll throw the link down below. He does some great stuff. So if Caleb or any other hunter tells you to shoot him in the boiler room, he's actually just referring to the vital organs. It's a section of the animal where you're aiming your shot for the most lethal, quick, and ethical kill. And this is going to vary a little bit from one species to the next where the ideal shot is if you want to place it in the boiler room. I see one coming. Ha, got it. I love shed hunting. I'm really proud of this one. I think I'm going to mount it in my driveway. All right, I'll stop with the bad dad joke soon. But shed hunting is actually a really important part of hunting. So shed hunting actually refers to going and collecting and looking for antlers that have dropped off deer during the wintertime. So actually any of our ungulates, our deer, our moose, our elk, the males grow antlers, they lose them over the winter months, and we can learn an incredible amount about the local wildlife populations and about the individuals themselves by analyzing their antlers. So I'm going to go over a few important things that you can know about antlers and some of the other terminology beyond shed hunting that's good to know as a new hunter. So it's middle of January right now, and I actually found my first shed of the season the other day, which was really exciting. I was out for a walk. I was actually just doing some tracking, and I came across this tiny little antler right here. So now I know that there's a little buck around moving up there, and next year, hopefully I'll actually see him, or maybe I'll get a picture of him on my trail camera. So that's one thing I love about shed hunting is if I'm using trail cameras, I can start to get pictures of deer, and then I can find their antlers and kind of confirm that the deer is actually in this area and start to dial in on its movement patterns. You can also start to learn about the individual deer by the size of the antler, because it'll tell you a little bit about the age of the antler. Sheds aren't always a perfect example of how old an animal's going to be, but it'll give you an example. I mean, if you look at a tiny little antler like that versus a big, thick one like this, if you look at the base of the antler, you can start to get a guess of, at least younger deer versus older, more mature deer in the area. You can also get to identify individual deer, because sure, deer look very similar to each other, but you'll get unique traits in the antler. Like this one here, at the end of this one tine, you've got 3 different little points coming off of it there. Now let's go over some other terminology that's really important when you're learning about sheds and that you might hear hunters use. So one term you might hear is that, oh, it was a 4-point, or it was a 6-point, or it's an 8-point. And that actually refers to how many points are coming up on the antler. So for an example, this one here, now depending on whether you live on the East Coast or the West Coast of North America, or maybe if you live in Europe, it might be different. So people will sometimes count the points differently. Here on the East Coast of Canada, at least, coast, we basically count the points on both sets of antlers. So there's 2 here, and we're going to assume there's 2 on the other side. So I would actually call this a 4-point deer because it's got 2 points on each side. Now, I know on the West Coast, often they'll just count the one side. So often they would just call this a 2-point deer. So that's going to maybe depend on your area. So there's one thing right there. Just knowing if somebody says a 4-point, they're looking at something like this, or if they call it, it could be something like this one going on here. Another term you might hear used when describing antlers are the tines. So the tines usually just refer to these spikes coming up here. So each one of those is a tine sticking up. And when you're counting them, we don't measure the tine as a point unless it's more than 1 inch in length. So this one here would count as a tine coming up. This one here would not because it's a little bit under an inch. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4 coming off there. I wouldn't count that one there though because it's too small. So again, this would be an 8-point right here. And then another term you might hear is the brow tine. And the brow tine refers to that first point that's coming out almost near the base of the antler, the brow. We call that the brow tine. And then these others are just the other tines coming off there. One more term that's a good one to know, you might hear somebody say a spiky or a button buck. Those are 2 common terms that people use in hunting. And a spiky or a button buck are referring to very young male deer. So a button buck is a deer that was just born that spring. So if you're hunting in the fall time, it's usually 4 months, maybe 6 months old. And they've just got these tiny little bumps. Basically, the bases of the antlers are just starting to form. So we call that a button buck. Or if it just has tiny little antlers starting to grow out, so maybe it's a 1.5 year old, then we'll often refer to it as a spiky. So there's some of the terminology around deer antlers and shed hunting. Now, beyond learning about the deer itself, there's all kinds of other fun things you can do if you find antlers too that also add to the value of shed hunting. So for example, this one here, we can see all kinds of teeth marks on it where rodents are coming along. So you often won't find antlers later on in the summer or the fall time because they'll literally get eaten by small rodents in the woods trying to get the minerals, the calcium, all the great stuff. So antler shedding are actually an important part of the ecology of the forest and become food and vital minerals for other species. You can also do crafts and all kinds of cool art and projects. So check this out here. This is a knife that has an antler handle on it. So you can use your antlers to make things like knife handles. You can make tools. I've made handles for opening drawers and stuff, buttons for t-shirts and sweaters, all kinds of fun things that you can do with antlers from a craft perspective. Here, dear. Come here, dear. All right, rattling has nothing to do with shaking a rattle out in the woods. Rattling is actually a technique that we use when we're hunting during the mating season, which is called the rut. So I'm going to show you 2 different examples of how it's done. The males will often fight with each other. It's a territorial thing that happens when they're trying to breed with the females. So to mimic this, I'll often bring a set of antlers out in the woods. Now you can buy synthetic ones, but I like to bring real ones that I've actually found shed hunting. I've got them on a little rope, so I'll have them over my neck, and I'll actually rub the antlers together. And you're basically trying to mimic the sound of bucks fighting. And sometimes I'll scrape the leaves, even crack a branch or 2 as I'm rattling the antlers. And what you're hoping happens here is that another dominant buck in the area hears that and comes over thinking there's other bucks fighting and he wants to get involved, show his dominance in the area. Another option is these things called rattling bags. So I don't actually know what these are made out of, but they're basically like a type of material inside of a bag. And instead of having to carry the big antler setup, I'm just shaking them in my hands. Now, I prefer using actual antlers myself because I actually think there's a little bit of a difference in the sound and the pitch, and deer are brilliant. They'll pick up on that kind of stuff, but I know people use these bags with success as well. But I just wanted to remind you that we have that free PDF with a whole bunch of more terms that you can download for free. The link's in the comments below there. I hope you enjoyed that one. I tried to make it a little bit fun and entertaining for you. Might be a little bit cheesy as well. If you're looking for a mentor and a community to help guide you in your journey in becoming a hunter, check out thehuntersjourney.com. We're a welcoming community that's open to people of all experience levels. You can feel comfortable there. We believe in respect for each other. We believe in reverence for the species we hunt. And we believe in stewardship as founding principles. So thehuntersjourney.com, and don't forget to get your PDF in the link below.